People don't retreat into silence because their minds are empty. They go quiet because their minds are too full. For some, thinking is not precursor to speaking. It is a replacement for it. To an outside observer, this can look like detachment, aloofness, or disinterest. A person who listens more than they contribute, who offers a nod where others offer an anecdote, who seems to exist just slightly outside the flow of conversation. The common interpretation is that they are not participating. This is the first and most fundamental misunderstanding. The fact that it may be shown, and the fact that they have. The truth is, the participation is happening entirely internally. While a conversation dances on the surface of topics, the mind of a quiet person is diving into depths. They're analyzing the subtext of a question, not just its surface meaning. They are tracing the emotional history behind someone's casual comment. They are running simultaneous simulations of possible responses, predicting trajectories, calculating impacts. By the time a socially acceptable window to speak has opened, their internal process has generated a dozen branching pathways, each with its own consequences. And so, often, they say nothing. Not from a lack of thought, but from an excess of it. Speech feels like being asked to summarize a novel in a single sentence. It feels reductive. It feels unsafe. This pattern is almost never a conscious choice made in adulthood. It is a survival behavior carved into the nervous system much earlier. It is learned in environments where words had weight and consequence, perhaps in a childhood where a casual remark could trigger a parent's anger or withdrawal, where expressing a need was met with frustration or ridicule, where conflict was volcanic and silence was the only reliable shelter. In these spaces, a child learns a brutal equation. Speaking equals risk. Thinking, however, is a safe harbor. Inside their own mind, they can have opinions, fears, and desires without those things being used against them. The mind becomes a secret room where everything is allowed to exist, unpoliced. Over years, this isn't just a habit. It is an adaptation. The brain's pathways strengthen for observation and internal processing, while the pathways for spontaneous verbal expression are left underdeveloped. Like a muscle that was never used, the body adapts alongside the mind. There is a physiological component to this silence. For some, the act of preparing to speak in a group triggers a subtle flood of adrenaline. The heart rate increases slightly. The senses sharpen into a hypervigilant state. This isn't full-blown anxiety, but a low-grade alert system left over from a time when social missteps had real emotional consequences. The body remembers the threat before the mind does. So, the default setting becomes to listen, to scan, to assess. To speak would be to step out of the protected cover of observation and into the open. The silence, then, isn't passive. It is an active state of guard. It is the body's way of minimizing its exposure to potential threat. Why does silence feel safer than speaking? Because thinking is a private dialogue. It allows for contradiction, for uncertainty, for changing your mind. It is fluid. Speaking, especially in a culture that values quick wit and confident answers, turns that fluid internal reality into something solid and public. Once a word is said, it exists in the world. It can be judged, misunderstood, or weaponized. For a person wired by early experiences to anticipate danger in connection, silence becomes a form of control. It is the only way to ensure that their inner world, fragile, complex, and deeply felt, is not mishandled by others. They prefer the safety of their own mind to the vulnerability of the shared space. What is happening internally during these long stretches of quiet is a rich and continuous narration. They are not checked out. They are profoundly checked in. They are reading the room with a novelist's eye, noticing the slight tension in someone's shoulders, the forced quality of a laugh, the unspoken alliance between two people in the group. They are connecting the present moment to past patterns, drawing lines between what is being said and what was said last week, last year. They are often several steps ahead of the conversation, having already seen where it is likely to go. This internal activity is exhausting, but it feels necessary. It is their primary way of relating to the world, through analysis rather than interaction. The tragedy is that this immense internal activity, this deep attention paid to others, is almost completely invisible. It earns no social credit. It builds no bridges. It is a gift given in secret, one that the giver never announces, and the recipient never knows they received. There is a significant emotional cost to this lifelong preference. The internal world, no matter how rich, was never meant to be a permanent residence. It is a sanctuary, but over time, it can become a prison. The silent person accumulates a reservoir of unexpressed thoughts, unfelt connections, and unexplored versions of themselves. They may have profound insights about the people in their lives, but those insights remain locked inside, never strengthening the bond. They may feel intense love, grief, or passion, but the translation of that feeling into speech feels impossibly dangerous or clumsy. This creates a unique loneliness. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people while feeling fundamentally untouchable, because the real self is communicated only in the silent language of thought. Relationships can become strained, not from a lack of care, but from a surplus of unshared reality. Partners, friends, and family members are left to interpret the silence, and often they interpret it incorrectly as coldness, secrecy, or indifference. The long-term cost is a gradual distancing from the spontaneous self. The part of a person that reacts without a filter, that laughs freely, that argues impulsively, that says, "I love you," without a 3-second internal risk assessment, that part atrophies. Life becomes a series of post-event analyses. I should have said that. Why did I stay quiet? The quiet person replays interactions long after everyone else has forgotten them, refining responses that will never be used. This mental labor is a hidden tax they pay for their safety. It is draining. It can lead to a feeling of being a ghost in one's own life, watching it happen through a thick pane of glass, unable to participate fully in the noisy, messy, unrehearsed reality of human connection. This behavior is not an intellectual choice. It is an emotional reflex. It made sense in the environment where it was formed. When the world feels unpredictable, and your words can become triggers for chaos, the smartest survival strategy is to say nothing, to make yourself small inside the vast landscape of your own mind. The problem is that the strategy does not get retired when the environment changes. It becomes the default way of being. The nervous system, having learned that silence equals safety, continues to enforce that rule long after the original threat is gone. The quiet adult is often obeying an old law set down by a child in a different country of the past. It is also a profound misunderstanding to view this silence as a lack of desire for connection. The desire is often overwhelming. It is the mechanism that is broken. The bridge between the overwhelming internal feeling and the external expression of it has been washed out. They feel the urge to connect, but the pathway to do so, through casual, unguarded speech, feels treacherous. So they connect in the ways they can, through acts of service, through deep listening, through loyalty. But in a world that speaks a language of verbal affirmation and constant communication, these quiet dialects often go untranslated. There is no villain in this story, not the quiet person, and not necessarily the people around them who are frustrated by the silence. It is a tragedy of mismatched languages. One person speaks in thoughts, hoping their careful attention will be felt. The other speaks in words, hoping for a verbal echo. Both can end up feeling unheard. In the end, the psychology of a person who prefers thinking over talking is not a pathology. It is a testament to adaptation. It is the story of a mind that found a way to protect its most sensitive parts by building an intricate, private inner world. That world is full of observations, insights, and emotional depth. But the very walls that protected also isolated. The behavior was a perfect solution to the problem of an unsafe environment. It is a less perfect solution to the problem of a human life, which requires some degree of shared vulnerability to feel real. The cost is a certain kind of loneliness. The reward is a certain kind of depth. They live life on a delay, experiencing events twice, once in the moment, silently, and once again later, in the exhaustive privacy of their own analysis. It is a quieter way to move through the world, a more cautious one. It is a life spent in the audience of one's own thoughts, long after the play has ended for everyone else. This behavior made sense. It protected something fragile when it needed protection, even if it cost something, even if the cost was a voice.